the best meal of the day. Look at that. Pre-workout cream of rice. Because today we have a massive video for the channel, taking you a full push day on a refeed. Now, I'm not going to show you a lot of my food, because I'm actually going to do a full day of eating tomorrow on my soft refeed day. I'm currently 3 weeks out from my first show, so this has come at a right point. I'm thoroughly excited to tuck into this meal because we've got some apple strudel cream of rice, frozen fruit medley, 40 grams of prunes, which I'm absolutely loving at the moment, dark chocolate, and a shit ton of cinnamon and pink salt. It's going to be a freaking solid push day today on the channel, and I'll be taking you through, hopefully, fingers crossed the gym's not busy, not a voiceover, but an actual talking through session, because I've been meaning to do one of these before. And obviously, because I train at the fucking mecca of sweaty gyms, Pure Gym, it's always full of students, and it's always full of just awkwardness, smelly lockers, and bad gym vibes. But we make it the environment that we make it. And, you know, plug in some music. Heavy metal is my go-to normally. If you want my playlist, Gains and Ravioli that I share with my clients, drop me a comment below and I will share that in the description as well, or I send it to you. But first of all, as always, Monster going in for pre-workout today. Not the best flavor, but it is top tier flavor all the same. Like I always say, green original Monster is the best. No one drinks anything different, but let's just get this on the channel. Oh, yes. These are like godsend when you're in prep because caffeine makes life 10 times better. Taste test very, very quickly. Oh, the sweet nectar. Now let me give you a quick taste test of this fucking bad boy, because this is insane, honestly. It's too nice to eat, so dense. Trick with cream of rice, like oats, make it the night before, leave it in the fridge overnight, and it goes solid like a cake, providing you've put enough water in it. Make the whey paste really thick as well, so it sits and solidifies on the top. And then this is how dense it is. That is how dense it is. That is unbelievably sexy. Now the cream of rice, like I said, is apple strudel, but the whey protein, I've run out of my coconut cream now, and I've got chocolatella Perform Whey. Haven't had this for a while. I did want red velvet, but the sup shop in my town didn't have any until this week, but I really needed it. So I went for chocolatella, which is still a good flavor. Not the best. Kinder Bueno, red velvet, and then chocolate orange, chocolate brownie batter, and then this one as well. They are my top kind of flavors, as well as carrot cake. I'm getting very fond of the carrot cake now, especially when I make carrot cake oats, which I'll probably show on the channel at some point when I go back into my bulk. So let me tuck into this. We'll head down to the gym and I'll take you through a full push day, 3 weeks out from my first ever bodybuilding show. Tell you what, that pre-workout went down like an absolute treat. But the only thing I find about refeeds is obviously where your fiber comes down, protein tends to come down, fats tends to come down for allowing extra calories through carbohydrates. I'm fucking starving all day. Like, you look forward to the post-workout cereal that I'm gonna have later, as always on refeeds, Cocoa Pops or Rice Krispies, or I might even dabble in a mixture of both today if I go to Aldi to the gym. But you're freaking starving all day. So in essence, it's actually worse than if you're dieting, because normally when I'm dieting or not on a refeed day, I have my fiber before I train, which isn't ideal, but I find it tends to still digest well for me before I train. So, because I tend to eat about an hour and a half, 2 hours before I go to the gym, so it has time to digest, store my body ready to be used as energy. But yeah, just way more hungry. But talking about progress of this prep so far, last Sunday just gone, hit my lowest ever weight ever recorded, probably since I was an adolescent, and I might even have shits that weigh more than me at the moment. So my official lowest weight before prep was 60 kilos on the dot. So before I started my coach Jack, I weighed 60 at the end of my cut. Then I gained weight for 2 years in a gaining phase, no mini cuts. So I wanted to kind of experience what it felt like to be a little bit more on the chubbier side. Mainly for my clients, but also I feel like, in my opinion, as a natural, you have to kind of go through that phase where you get a little bit more uncomfortable with body fat. And then once you've kind of got to that stage, that's where you then diet down, and then you can then maintain a little bit more of a leaner physique when you're gaining. So I gained 20 kilos, so I got to 83.7, I think, off the top of my head. And then I dieted down again for my photo shoot with my coach this time, with Jack. and I got down to 62.8 kilos. So I gained nearly 3 kilos of muscle in 3 years, which for a natural lifter is pretty damn good. So now I started this prep at 70. We estimated it were going to be around about the same weight for my photo shoot, but obviously I hit 59.7 on Sunday, which is nuts. So new territory for me. It did go up a little bit over Monday, so yesterday. Today's Tuesday. I weighed 60 on the dot again today, so it's coming slightly back down again. But yeah, I'm estimating by the time I hit show, I should be about 58, 57 kilos. I put £5, it's around 57. We'll see. I've got another 3 weeks left, so see how much I can pull off. But things are getting harder, legs are hurting more, get a bit more tired, motivation starts to dwindle away a little bit. So time in these, refeed days is going to be really, really efficient. This is probably going to be my last refeed now until I start my peak week in 2 weeks' time, where we start loading myself up for show, making sure that I'm primed, ready to go to bring my best look to the stage. You guessed it, the gym was absolutely ransackled. So back at you with a voiceover for today's push-ups. Now I realised actually in my last refeed vlog, I did actually go through this same session, but not as in much detail. I was just explaining the reps and sets. So I always start off with the warm-up set on the cable press, just to make sure that my shoulders and the setup of the exercise is in a perfect position. So with the cable press at the moment, the bench is set as far away as I can so that I can just grab the handles and press straight away. The daisy chains are there basically just to make it more energy efficient. There's nothing fancy about it. It just means you don't have to wrestle the freaking bench to get the cables around. So for my warm-up set, I normally do 19 kilos for about 5 to 6 reps, just to get a bit of blood into my chest, but also to make sure that I'm preparing myself for the first set, which will be, I believe off the top of my head, 24 kilos, which is just over half the stack still. And the gym was at my first show of the season, which is super exciting. Now, what I tend to do with pressing work is always put the most unstable exercise at the start. Now, if you're doing like a dumbbell press, if you're doing a cable press, those sorts of stuff, it's going to be a really good thing to put them at the start because that's where you're going to be much more fresher. You're going to have more energy, more stability in your shoulders. If you put this at the end of the session, your chest is going to be absolutely pumped. It's going to be fatigued. You're not going to be able to stabilize that shoulder enough. Now, you could also potentially put a cable fly before this, just a light set of cable flies just to get a bit more blood into that area. And that's also an unstable exercise. Cable flies, dumbbell flies, that sort of stuff, just to get a little bit more blood into that area so that when you're going into your chest press work, you can actually feel it. So again, on this, just doing 2 straight sets, 8 to 12. I did end up dropping 1 rep on the first set, but reclaimed it on the second, which means I probably didn't push myself as hard enough on that first set. But that's all right, because we are, it's more about the stimulus at the moment than it is about actually trying to push to the absolute max. At the end of the day, I'm 3 weeks out, so this is just going to eat into my recovery quite a little bit. And something I've learned over time as well, like if you've got multiple chest press exercises in a session, if I go absolutely balls to the wall in that first set, like completely balls to the wall, forced reps, that sort of stuff, that second set is just going to be a complete washout. And then it's going to eat into this exercise here, the incline Smith press or reverse banded Smith press, and it's then going to diminish my performance in that. So you got to call it at the right point. And for me, that second set is maybe where I will actually push it, or on my third exercise, which will be cable flies a little bit later on. Now this exercise I did actually drop a rep on the first and second set. I was fucking pissed because I felt so pumped going into this exercise. But I've been playing around with my setup as well at the moment. So I used to take a really, really wide grip with incline bar work, and I used to feel it a lot on my shoulders. So what I've actually done now is I've just brought my fists in slightly inside my elbows. This is what's going to basically allow my tricep to get a little bit more work as well. So I'm now not only just using my chest, my shoulders, but I'm also getting a little bit more tricep recruitment, and it's enabled to be a lot stronger. And I have seen definitely a lot more weight being pushed from doing this kind of setup. So definitely have a play around with your setup. If you prefer a wider grip, but there's nothing wrong with it. I just find, if my forearms are slightly inside my elbows at the bottom, I do get a little bit more recruitment from that tricep, and I can drive more force through that exercise. Just making sure that your elbows are stacked underneath the wrist throughout and not flaring out from beneath the bar at the bottom. That means you just need to adjust that bench forward or backwards a little bit just to get that alignment a little bit more. Then moving into the cable flies, again, like last vlog, we are doing 2 sets, 8 to 12 reps. Now the cable that you use will dramatically change where this weight feels heaviest. Now, a lot of the research at the moment is lengthen work, more weight in the stretch. So using a smaller cable stack and putting the bench a bit further back is actually going to create more of a drop off in that short range and enable you to go a little bit more past failure. At the end of the day, we are weaker in the contraction of a chest than we are in the stretch. Okay, so we're stronger in the stretch, weaker in that short position. So we naturally want less weight. Not all the time. If you've got a shoulder injury and it hurts in that stretch position, then you probably would want more weight in that short position. Okay, so if you're using, the wide cable stacks, this is where you're going to get a little bit more weight in that short range where we're ultimately weakest. So if I was going to do that, I would tend to maybe put that actually at the start of the session, fatigue the short range, and then you've got a lot left in that lengthened position where you can drive a little bit more stimulus, a little bit more mechanical tension into those areas where we've got a lot left in the tank. Now for the cuff raise, something I realized after filming this set is I probably actually had the bench a little bit too further back or the cables too high. Main reason being is as I come up to the top of the rep, you can see that my rear delt is starting to fire up. So I'm actually getting a little bit more of those posterior fibers of my medial delt, but also a little bit more of the anterior fibers of the rear delt. We want it to be solely on that medial delt. So I just need to play around my setup again next week for this. But again, I've still got a good stimulus through the medial delts here. So I'm not too worried about it, but it is getting increasingly heavy now towards the end of the set to finish those reps off. So I will not force myself to kind of change my form. I'll call it a day at the end of that set. And then into the final two exercises of the session, the tricep extension single arm. This is really going to be taxing that short range. So this is why it's at the start and not after the next exercise, which is my JM press. JM press is a medial tricep exercise and very, very heavy in that mid-range where we're naturally strongest. So if you're fatiguing the short range to its truest capacity, it's going to mean you've got a lot left in that stretch and the mid-range to be able to push a little bit more volume or a little bit more weight. So as you know from the last vlog, we're only doing like 2 sets on this one, on the single arm tricep, but we're doing 3 sets. But we're doing 3 sets on the JM press, mainly because it's an exercise that's a little bit awkward to set up. And also it can cause a little bit of elbow niggles, that sort of stuff, which are an absolute pain in the ass to kind of recover from. And at this point in prep, we don't want to risk that. So more higher volume on these. Absolutely love this exercise at the moment. Get a really good connection with my tricep. And if you want a little bit more chest recruitment out of this, set your arms a little bit closer so that when you get to the top of the rep, you're driving your biceps across your chest still. So you're getting some indirect volume there on your chest work. And this is something that a lot of lads tend to forget about as well, is actually like some of the indirect volume does equate to that total volume. So if I was programming this, it would be like half a set of volume for my chest per set. So we're doing 3 sets. That's like 1.5 sets of chest work in this session, just on this exercise alone. And then we finished off the session with some posing, mainly just some chest work, some front work to see where those delts have been pumped. And my God, I got a good pump out of my chest, shoulders, and triceps. My favorite pose at the moment, which when I first started posing, was I actually hated it because I just didn't feel like it suited my anatomy and my physique, is the Mike Mertzer hands behind your back. That's one of my favorite poses at the moment. And I've just added it into my posing routine, which I'm really, really excited to kind of display on stage because it really brings out my front delts, medial delts, and my abdominals, which is some of my favorite muscle groups to kind of train at the moment. And we are back from the trenches of Pure Gym. Didn't manage to get a talking head training video planned in because as soon as I stepped through the door, got my first exercise out the way, it was absolutely ram-packed. And the way they've kind of structured the cables in there since they've done a refurb, it's really awkward to get some like decent cinematic angles like I like getting in most gyms. And also like because it's in such a row, it's really hard to kind of like not be in other people's way. Like I hate being in people's way, and I always try and position the camera or zoom in on the camera so like no one's in the shot. And obviously filming it for YouTube, like it's difficult because it's that wide lens. But we managed to get it done. It was a good session. Really, really enjoyed it. I did drop a couple of reps on a couple of stuff, as you know from the voiceover. That is expected with being 3 weeks out. But this refeed is going so far so good because we are got Cocoa Pops for post-workout. Best cereal post-workout, honestly. Like, it digests really well. It's a rice product. Naturally, rice digests well for a lot of people. As you know from my last refeed vlog, I used to have a lot of cornflakes. Did not sit well whatsoever. And I have also tried the Weetabix Minis before. and I literally couldn't even get half a bowl finished because of the amount of freaking fiber in it. And I have seen some other people do this before, and I'm like, how the hell are you doing that? There's so much fiber in one bowl, but they are so good. Not as good as Crave, but they are really good. So I hope you enjoyed today's vlog. Tomorrow will be a refeed day again, running the same amount of carbs as I am today, and I'll let you know what that is tomorrow. If you've enjoyed it, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, because there'll be more videos like this as I'm getting closer to the stage. My plan of action is peak week is to do daily vlogs on everything that is changing throughout the week. My steps, my cardio, my training, my calories, my carb loading, my tan, and obviously show day, the most important day of this prep. And I'm thoroughly excited to take you along. So catch you in the next video.